I had everything planned, every hour, every mile, every choice that was supposed to make my life look like it was going somewhere. Graduate, find work, keep my head down. It wasn't much of a dream, but it was at least something I could control. Then she walked in that afternoon, her cousin. I was at the back of the small bookshop, half bent over a stack of repair manuals that hadn't been touched since the 90s. The bell above the door rang, that tinny chime that always echoed a little too long in the quiet. I didn't even look up at first, just another customer. But then I heard her voice, soft and low, asking for Ms. Halim at the front counter. That was the first time I saw her. She wasn't what I expected from someone called my aunt's cousin. She didn't fit any category neatly, too self-possessed for her age to matter, too comfortable in silence to be easily read. Mid-40s, maybe. Her hair was swept up like she'd done it absent-mindedly on the way in, and her coat was the kind that made you wonder if she cared about fashion or just accidentally had taste. She smiled at the shop owner, then at me, briefly, just enough to notice that her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. "Sorry," she said, "I was told someone here could help me find an old poetry collection. Something by Rumi." I was supposed to stay out of customer talk, but the owner was in the back room, and the silence stretched long enough that it felt rude not to fill it. "I know where it is," I said, standing too quickly. "I think." She turned to me then, slowly, like someone measuring how much attention to give. "Do you?" That question shouldn't have sounded personal, but it did. I found the book easily, I'd shelved it last week. But handing it to her felt like something else, like a test I didn't know I'd been taking. Her fingers brushed mine, just barely, but enough for me to notice that they were warm, dry, steady. She didn't pull back right away. Neither did I. She glanced down at our hands, then up at me again. Her look wasn't flirtatious. It was sharper than that, assessing, but not unkind. "Thank you," she paused, waiting. "Aram," I said. "Aram," she repeated, like tasting the word before deciding if she liked it. "I'm Sarah." She tucked the book under her arm and looked around the shop, eyes tracing the shelves like she was trying to remember something she'd once known. Then she smiled again, softer this time. "You work here often?" "Every day," I said, realizing how that sounded. "For now, I mean." Her expression flickered, just a tiny flash of understanding, or maybe recognition. "Ah," she said quietly. "One of those for now jobs." I should have laughed it off, but I couldn't. There was something about how she said it, like she'd had a few for now jobs herself once, and maybe one of them had lasted longer than she'd meant it to. Before I could answer, her phone buzzed. She frowned, glanced at the screen, and exhaled. "That's my cousin," she said. "She's probably outside." Then, almost as an afterthought, "I'm glad you were here, Aram." And just like that, she left, coat brushing the doorframe, the bell ringing again, her voice fading into the soft afternoon hum outside. I should have gone back to sorting books. Instead, I stood there with my hand still half raised, feeling the warmth where her fingers had been. It wasn't attraction. Not yet. Just a flicker, something unspoken that caught in the quiet air between us. That night, I tried reading the Rumi quote printed on the back of the same edition I'd given her, "The wound is the place where the light enters you." I closed the shop, locked the door, and realized I hadn't stopped thinking about her since the moment she said my name. And I knew, somehow, that nothing I'd planned was going to stay the same. The shop was quieter than usual, mid-morning rain tapping against the windows, that kind of half-light that makes every sound feel too loud. I was cataloging new arrivals when the bell rang again, and for a moment I thought I'd imagined it. Then I heard her voice. "Do you still rescue lost books, Aram?" I turned. She stood there, same coat, hair slightly damp at the edges. In her hands was the same Rumi collection I'd found for her, I did. Her tone was light, but her eyes weren't. Some things shouldn't stay ruined. There was a pause, not long enough to be awkward, but enough for something unspoken to settle in the space between us. I took the book gently, flipping through the pages. The stain had spread in a soft amber bloom across a few lines of poetry. Somehow, it didn't look ruined at all. I can press it, I offered. It'll dry flat. Her smile reached her eyes this time, faint but real. You fix more than books here, don't you? I wanted to say no, or maybe yes, but words didn't line up right. She was watching me, waiting for an answer I didn't know how to give. She followed me to the back table, where the drying press sat beneath the open window. The air smelled faintly of paper and rain. She leaned against the counter, close enough for me to notice the faint scent of her perfume, not floral, not sweet, just clean. Like linen in quiet mornings. Her fingers traced the rim of a mug someone had left behind. I noticed a ring mark on her hand, faint, like it had been gone a while but hadn't been forgotten. You like working here? She asked. I nodded. It's calm. That's rare, she said softly. Most people your age are running from quiet. I think quiet's where everything actually happens, I said before I could stop myself. She looked at me then, really looked. There was something behind her calm, something fragile she didn't want seen. For a heartbeat, it felt like I had, and she didn't know what to do with that. She laughed then, too quickly, as if she'd caught herself feeling too much. You sound older than you are. I shrugged, smiling a little. And you sound younger than you think. That made her pause. Her hand stilled on the mug, eyes flicking up. For a moment, neither of us said anything, just the sound of rain softening against the windowpane. Finally, she picked up her umbrella and said, "Keep the book until it's dry. I'll come back for it." She turned to leave, then hesitated by the door. "Thank you, Aram," she said quietly, not looking back. "For treating it like it still matters." When she left, I realized she hadn't meant the book. And for reasons I couldn't explain, I didn't feel like I'd been talking about it either. It was the third time she came to the shop, but the first time she stayed long enough for the rain to stop. The power had flickered out that evening, a storm had rolled in sudden and heavy, thunder shaking the shelves. The owner had gone home early. Just me, a flickering desk lamp, and her, standing near the poetry section like the storm couldn't touch her. "Seems we're trapped," she said, her voice half a laugh, half a sigh. "Not the worst place to be," I said. She raised an eyebrow. "You sure about that?" "I can be I'll risk it." She settled into the old wooden chair near the counter, smoothing her skirt like she was buying time. I made tea from the little kettle in the back, and when I handed her a cup, she accepted it with both hands, fingertips brushing mine, brief, but electric enough to make the air shift. We sat in silence for a while, listening to the rain. The soft tick of water against glass, her steady breathing, it all felt heavier than it should have. She broke it first. "Do you ever feel like you've lived two different lives, and neither one fits anymore?" It wasn't a casual question. Not from her. "Sometimes," I said. "Usually when I realize I've started caring about something I shouldn't." Her eyes lifted then, slow, deliberate. "And what do you do when that happens?" "I pretend I don't." She smiled faintly. "You're better at pretending than you look." I wanted to ask what she was pretending, too, but I didn't. She looked tired, not from the day, but from holding something too long. Her phone buzzed on the counter. She glanced at it, expression tightening for just a second. A name flashed on the screen before she flipped it face down. "Do you need to get that?" I asked. "No," she said, too quickly. "It's nothing." The silence after that wasn't comfortable. It pressed in, the way thunder presses before it breaks. She stood, pacing toward the window, tracing the condensation with her fingertip. I used to come here with someone, she said quietly. Before it was your shop. Before everything changed. She turned halfway toward me, and in that half-light, she looked both older and younger than she had any right to, a woman caught between memory and restraint. You remind me of him sometimes, she said. Not in looks. Just how you listen. Something inside me tilted, a slow ache of wanting to say something I shouldn't. I stood, half a step closer than I should have been. Maybe I shouldn't, she murmured, almost to herself. Probably not, I said softly. The rain thickened, hitting the glass like fingertips. Her hand was still against the window, and I could see her reflection, her lips parted, eyes uncertain, like she wanted to lean closer and wasn't sure why. Lightning flashed, cutting the room in white for a second, long enough for me to see her turn toward me, just slightly. Then her phone rang again. She flinched, stepped back, and the moment broke. I should go, she whispered. Before the roads flood. I didn't stop her. Just watched her umbrella open against the storm, watched her disappear into the rain. For a long time after, I stood in the same spot, the echo of her voice still lingering in the quiet. We hadn't crossed any line. But I couldn't remember which side I was on anymore. The rain stopped, the sun came back, and the silence settled like dust on the shelves. I told myself it didn't matter. That whatever had almost happened was just a pause in a storm, the kind that feels bigger in the moment than it is. But I kept finding reasons to look up when the doorbell rang. And every time it wasn't her, something in me sank a little lower. When she finally returned, it was a clear afternoon. She wasn't wearing the coat this time, just a simple gray sweater and tired eyes. You've been gone a while, I said quietly. She hesitated before answering. I needed to remember who I was before I walked in here. There was no smile this time. Just a truth she didn't want to say aloud. She came to the counter, the same spot as always. Is my book ready? It's been ready, I said. I just didn't know when to give it back. Her gaze lingered on mine, searching for something neither of us had named. Then she exhaled, soft but sharp, like a confession escaping. This isn't normal, she said finally. Whatever this is. I swallowed hard. I know. It shouldn't matter, she continued, her voice steady but fraying around the edges. But it does. The room went impossibly still. Even the faint hum of the ceiling fan felt distant. I keep trying to tell myself I'm imagining it, she said. That it's just attention. That you're kind because you don't know me. Her words hit something deep and unguarded inside me. I wanted to tell her she was wrong, that I did know her, maybe more than the people who thought they did. But I didn't say it. I just listened. You make it hard to stay, she whispered, eyes glistening without tears. And harder to go. I took a step closer, not enough to touch, but enough for the air between us to change shape. You think I don't feel that? I asked quietly. She looked at me, and for the first time, didn't look away. Her expression wasn't composed anymore, it was raw, uncertain, alive. I'm too old for this, she said, shaking her head. For confusion, for wanting what I can't explain. You're not too old for wanting, I said before I could stop myself. That made her laugh, a small, broken sound that wasn't amusement at all. You don't know what that costs, Aram. The clock ticked. Somewhere outside, a car door slammed. But inside, everything had narrowed to her, the faint tremor in her hands, the way she bit her lower lip to hold herself still. She finally whispered, if I stay a little longer, it'll mean something. And I can't let it mean something. She picked up the book, holding it to her chest like a shield. Then, almost too quietly to hear, she said, "You make me remember what I tried to forget." And before I could ask what that was, she was already walking away, leaving the door open just long enough for the silence to follow her out. It had been nearly 2 weeks since she said she couldn't let it mean something. And yet, she came back. No rain this time, no excuses. Just a quiet afternoon that felt too bright for what hung between us. She didn't say hello, only placed an envelope on the counter. "Could you keep this for me?" she asked. I frowned. "Keep it?" "Just for a while," she said, her tone light but her eyes far away. "I can't throw it out, and I can't take it home." I nodded, sliding it aside. But the paper was soft and worn, handled too many times. Her name wasn't on it, but I saw a man's handwriting. A first name. Farid. She noticed me glance. "You can look if you want," she said quietly. "It's not a secret. Just a story I stopped telling." I didn't open it, though. I just asked, "Who was he?" Her smile barely appeared. "Someone who promised forever, and then forgot what that meant." She turned, looking out the window. The street outside glowed in that early evening gold, the kind that makes everything look kinder than it really is. "I kept the letter for years," she said. "Not because of him, because I wanted to remember what it felt like to believe someone." Something in my chest tightened. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. She went on, softer now. "You remind me of him sometimes. The way you listen. The way you hesitate before saying things that matter." I laughed a little, trying to break the heaviness. "That's not much of a compliment." "It's not meant to be," she said. "It's a warning." That made me look up. Her voice had gone quieter, almost trembling. "You're kind, Aram. You notice people. You make them feel like they still exist. Don't waste that on someone like me." Her hand brushed the counter as she said it, a small, nervous motion that didn't match her words. And before I could stop myself, I said, "You talk like you're past saving." She exhaled, shaking her head slowly. "Maybe I am. But you shouldn't be here trying to prove me wrong." For a moment, neither of us moved. Just the faint hum of traffic outside, the clock ticking behind me. Then I reached for the envelope and handed it back. She hesitated, then took it. "What changed?" I asked. Her lips parted, then closed again. "Finally," she said, "he sent another one last week. After 15 years. He found my address." I didn't know what to say. She gave a small, tired smile. "I haven't read it yet. I just didn't want to be alone when I decided whether to." And somehow, that was the moment it shifted, not a confession, not a touch, just the quiet knowing that she trusted me enough to hold a piece of her past, even if it hurt. When she finally left, she didn't take the envelope. She only said, "Keep it until I'm ready to remember." And as the door closed, I realized I already was. She came back one evening just before closing, no warning, no storm this time. Just that calm, steady presence I'd started to feel before I even saw her. She didn't speak at first. She just stood in the doorway, holding the envelope I'd kept for her all this time. The edges were creased now, but unopened. "I read it," she said finally. I nodded, not asking. "He wanted to apologize," she went on. "Said he made mistakes, said he never stopped thinking about me. 15 years later, and somehow, he thinks sorry can travel that far." She gave a small laugh, but it sounded fragile. Funny thing is, I believed him. For a minute, I really did. I moved from behind the counter, keeping my steps slow, like the air between us might break if I walked too fast. "And now?" "Now I don't know what I believe," she said. I only know I didn't cry when I read it. That used to mean something. We stood in the middle of the shop, surrounded by shelves that had seen us through everything, the distance, the pauses, the almosts. Outside, the streetlights flickered on, one by one, like the world was dimming gently to let this moment breathe. She placed the letter on the table. It doesn't matter what he wrote. It's just paper. But her hand stayed there, palms flat, as if she was still trying to let go of something invisible. I reached forward without thinking, covering one of her hands with mine. Her skin was warm, steady, alive. She didn't pull away this time. You don't have to let go of everything, I said quietly. She looked up at me then, eyes wet but calm. You make it sound easy. It isn't, I said. But maybe it's not supposed to be. We stood like that, not moving, not naming what this was. Just breathing the same quiet air, as if the silence itself understood more than words ever could. After a long while, she whispered, I never meant for this to happen. I know, I said. And yet, yeah, I murmured. Her hand turned under mine, fingers curling slightly, not holding, not asking, just staying. Then she stepped closer, enough for our shoulders to touch. It wasn't a confession. It wasn't a promise. It was something smaller, truer. She rested her forehead lightly against my temple, a gesture so gentle it almost didn't exist. I could feel her breathing, unsteady, real. Neither of us said anything after that. There was nothing to say. We stayed like that until the lights went out automatically at closing time, and the shop filled with the soft blue of the street outside. Then she stepped back, eyes searching mine one last time. Whatever this is, she said, voice breaking just a little, thank you for letting it be. And when she left, she didn't take the letter this time either. Only the silence, and the space where something unnamed had finally found its shape. It's been months now. The shop looks the same, but I don't. I still unlock the same door every morning, still smell the dust and paper the moment I step inside. But something in me listens differently now, to silence, to people, to the weight of things left unsaid. Sarah doesn't come by often. When she does, it's never for long. We talk about books, about weather, about the way the city smells before it rains. Nothing too personal. Nothing too dangerous. But every word still hums with everything we didn't say that night. She smiles easier now, though, not the guarded kind that hides a scar, but the quiet kind that accepts it. And maybe that's enough. I found the letter again last week while cleaning the back shelves. Still unopened the second time around, she never did take it with her. I turned it over in my hands, wondering if I should throw it away. I didn't. Some things aren't meant to be erased, just lived past. People ask sometimes why I work here instead of doing something bigger. I just tell them I like watching stories return to life. Old pages, old covers, old hands. They think I'm talking about books. The truth is, I learned that not every story needs to be finished. Some just need to be felt, even if only for a moment, even if it breaks you open in the process. What happened between us wasn't love, not in the way people write about it. It was quieter, like two people realizing they could still feel something after thinking they couldn't. Maybe that's what love really is, stripped of the noise. Just recognition. Just breath shared in the same silence. I think about her sometimes, how she said, "You make me remember what I tried to forget." I didn't understand it then, but I do now. She wasn't talking about me. She was talking about herself, the part of her that once believed she could still start over. And maybe that's what she gave me, too, the permission to stop living as if everything had to make sense before it could mean something. The world didn't end. There were no dramatic goodbyes. Just two people who met in the quiet, changed each other a little, and learned how to keep going. Now, sometimes when the shop is empty and rain taps the windows again, I'll sit where she once stood. I'll press my fingers against the glass, feel the cool surface, and let the memory settle, not painful anymore, just real. Maybe we were never meant to last. Maybe we were just meant to remind each other that we still could. And that's enough. Sparkles, if this story made you feel something, let me know in the comments. Would you want more stories like this?